I'm Michael Clark, and you're watching Meet the Farmer TV. Coming up next on Meet the Farmer TV.
It's like a puzzle. I call it a food system puzzle, where you have these basic pieces, and to make this piece work better, you add this piece, and before you know it, you got 60 pieces. So we're always adding pieces, but those pieces are to support other pieces, like we add renewable energy to be able to support the growing of food, because we need energy. So this is how we do it.
Meet the Farmer TV is independent reporting to get you the best information about local food and food from the farm to your plate. This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Valley Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.
Okay, so this is the product. Arugula, Swiss chard, Mizuna, beet greens, baby dandelion, tatsoi, red cabbage, all of this goes into this mix. This is the preferred mix. About 14, 16 different items that go in there. And the people prefer this over any of the summer mixes out there. Actually, our winter mix. So we do our winter mix year round. So we have different types of mixes. This mix actually doesn't have any very much lettuce in it. It has baby beet greens that kind of take the place, and chard that take the place of the lettuce. It tastes pretty much like lettuce at that stage, when it's in that baby stage like that. Nasturtiums. We have nasturtium flowers year-round. Many of our restaurants use it, and of course the herbs and watercress is a staple, and baby spinach, baby red mustard.
Do any of those restaurants suggest on their menu or something that they're working with growing power?
Yes, they have it on their menus. We have one restaurant that on every upscale, on every plate, they have our product. So if you go there, you'll see our product on every one of their plates. Meritage. And we have our permanent spots at our 3 major co-ops in the city. We have permanent sections with our label, our name, and pictures and all that stuff.
How many varieties of plants can you actually grow?
159. What's that?
How much of what you do is farming and how much is relationships?
Oh gosh, I think everybody here does both. I don't know how you separate. You know, I think you always got to develop and continue to develop relationships. Like I said, sometimes we'll start on the front end to get to this end. For example, some people will start buying our market baskets, and before you know it, they're giving us compost. And they're buying stuff for their food system, their store, their restaurant. So some corporations will start with our market baskets, and then they tell us about their foundation, and we apply for a grant and get a grant because of that relationship. So these relationships are ongoing, and these relationships are continuing because in many corporations you lose that person that you had that relationship with, so you have to do relationships with multiple people within the organization. So it can't be like, I'm gonna get buddy-buddy with this person and it's gonna last forever. That's not a sustainable position to be in. So it's really about developing an honest relationship that helps not only the organization, but the community. Everybody has to have a win. It can't be just growing power with the win. That's not sustainable for us to always have a win. We have to be able to have multiple wins. The organization that we're dealing with, the store, the chefs, and so forth. Everybody's got to win.
You do any bartering?
What's that?
Any bartering, or is it all cash? Bartering?
No, we don't do a lot of bartering. We give away stuff, but we don't do a lot of bartering. That's a very difficult thing to do, to manage. You know, I'm trying to manage a system that is we do 60 different things. So how do you do 60 different things and you know. We're always adding something else to make, it's like a puzzle. I call it a food system puzzle, where you have these basic pieces, and to make this piece work better, you add this piece, and before you know it, you got 60 pieces. So we're always adding pieces, but those pieces are to support other pieces, like we add renewable energy to be able to support the growing of food, because we need energy. So this is how we do it. We developed this anaerobic digester. This is an in-vessel, look at it as an in-vessel composting system that creates acetic acid. Acetic acid is like vinegar. So we're taking food waste and turning it into vinegar, high concentrations, 22,000 milligrams per ounce of acetic acid to produce 6 different products, one of which is fertilizer, an organic fertilizer, and one is methane gas. So this is done at a low pH of about 3. This tank is about 80,000 pounds. I have a partner, Mark Heffernan. Him and I came up with this system. This system is now at a stage where we're going to take it to the next stage of building a methane digester, which is already out there, but this particular type of process wasn't. We worked with the University of Wisconsin Green Bay Microbiology Department that did our testing. This has PEX tubing around it. It has to be heated to 100 degrees. It has 4 stomachs in it, or 4 chambers like a cow's stomach. And we grind in food waste, high solid food waste. And then we open up valves and take off the acetic acid. So the idea was to pump ground up food waste into an airlock system, and there's a big auger inside, and for 30 days it augered and got the acetic acids up to 22,000 milligrams. And then we started taking off acids and adding 2 tons of new food waste. That was the test, to see if we could add 2 tons, take off 1,000 gallons a day without dropping the acetic acid levels. This is what you can do with cooked food waste as well. We did it with pre-cooked food waste because we wanted to see, we know that post-cooked stuff really bumps up the acetic acid, like fish and meat and things like that. But we wanted to see how high we could get it with just raw food waste. Finished product, you make plastic out of acetic acid. You can make a de-icer out of acetic acid. You can make it's a fertilizer with NPK in the 20s. You'd have to dilute it and so forth. But when it comes out, we tested it. It's in the 20s. You can use it as a remediation. Soil remediation to get rid of toxins in the soil, and methane gas to go into a methane digester to produce methane and run that into a generator to generate electricity to sell back to the utility company. They pay us 22 cents a kilowatt hour. We pay 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Yes?
Do you use acetic acid for herbicide? Ever experimented with that?
I haven't done, we tried some on some plants, but it has to be diluted to such a point. But that's something we're waiting for somebody like you or young students to come along and do those kind of tests, because that's the next stage, this next generation of folks that can take these products and use them. But I haven't had a chance, but we tried it on some tomato plants and just cooked them. It was too strong. But we didn't dilute it, but we put it full strength on just to see what would happen.
Do you employ a gas engineer to keep safety for the methane gas?
We don't produce methane gas in this stage. We're doing it at 3 pH. To make it methane gas producing, you have to get the pH up to 10, 11, 12. This stage, we're not trying to produce methane gas, especially this is in our greenhouse number 6. Any methane that's built up in a tank, a little bit of it, we got permission from the city to run it through a filter of these filings and to pump it out of the tank. But very little methane is created at a pH of 3. You need different bugs. So right now we're working, we actually got some bugs from Anheuser-Busch's digester to add it to our acetic acid. They're working on it at the university to get the pH up to 12, 13 or whatever, as high as we can get it. The higher you can get the pH, the more methane production you get. But that's a great, great question, because we don't want these we want these at places to take it to acetic acid, but you don't want a methane producing digester where people are. It needs to be in an industrial site, so we have an industrial site. Actually, when the acetic acid comes out of there, it smells worse than anything you'd ever want to smell. So what we did was we built a big box and filled it with compost. And we put pallets, plastic pallets, and we put landscape fabric, and we put the same pump, air pump inside. We put an air pump inside and sucked the smells underneath the compost and let it volatilize through the compost, and that's how we got rid of the smells. You could actually stick your head inside the 1,000-gallon tank and not smell anything. But if we didn't do that, those smells could chase everybody out of the neighborhood. That's how bad they smell.
What did it do to worms?
We don't feed it to the worms. There's no worms in that compost box. We just put woodchip and brewery waste in there. Yes?
These training classes you have, are they on your website?
Yes, and I also brought, if you come to my workshop tomorrow, I have handouts for our training class, but you can pick up information on www.growingpower.org. We have a pretty big website with all kinds of stuff. I never get to look at it, but they tell me there's a lot of good stuff on it. And then we have animals. Goats. We should have about 25 when I get back, because they're giving birth while I'm here.
What are those for, Will?
We use them for milking. These are alpines. We're working with a chef to make artisan cheese. So we milk them. This is happening right in the city, and this is a great place for kids from the schools to come and see what's going on right here in the city. They don't have to, our funding in our public schools won't allow the kids to go out to farms anymore. So they, and we have 300 layers that we feed food waste. We get $4 a dozen for our eggs. And then we have Muscovy ducks that we raise. And we butcher, in Wisconsin, you can butcher 1,000 fowl on a farm without taking them to a processor. This year we're breeding heirloom turkeys. And we have bees. We get 150 pounds of honey per hive in a city. And the reason that we get such high production, there's more flora inside cities. There's a project in Chicago called Beeline that they train folks coming out of the prisons. And they have an unbelievable operation, 125 hives on asphalt in the middle of the city of Chicago. And on the City Hall, they have beehives. So the, Mayor Daley, there's a big competition between Chicago and Milwaukee on who is the greenest city. So Mayor Daley wants to be the greenest city in the world, and Mayor Tom Barrett, our mayor, wants to be the greenest city. So the kids get involved in learning how to keep the bees, something I don't do. I've been stung too much picking crops, so, you know, I stay away from those bees. You'll never find me doing this. This is one thing I don't do on the farm. But we teach our kids. They build the frames. They go through the whole process, sterilizing. And now, Because we have this compost, we can sell it. We can develop other farms. So if you go downtown Chicago, right on the front doorstep of Chicago in Grant Park, we're engaged by the city of Chicago to grow vegetables. So we grow 159 different varieties in downtown on a 2-acre piece of land right across from Buckingham Fountain, the fountain that you see in Married with Children. You know, that some of you watched that show back in the day probably. That's where this garden is, right across from Lakeshore Drive, from the lake. And I hauled down 100,000 pounds of compost and built these beds. And if you go through the park, a lot of people won't even recognize this as being vegetables. Very intensively planted, very aesthetic. You can have aesthetics and production at the same time.
Who maintains those gardens?
Our Chicago staff. We have office in Chicago. And
35 people?
Yeah, we have a staff of 4 people in Chicago that maintain 3 urban farms in Chicago. And our youth, because we have youth programs wrapped around working with teens in Chicago, which are probably some of the most challenging teens anywhere on the planet. They have water. These gardens, the city used the same money that they paid outside landscape companies to pay us to do this. We get $50,000 a year to plant this garden. And that was the same money. They didn't have to go out and get other money. It was the money that they gave those landscape companies to grow flowers. So that's part of working with and developing the relationship and finding out what's available, because if you go and ask city for money, you know, they're going to look at you like, get out of here. But if you can come up with ways of using the existing funding, you can pull stuff like this off. They paid for the compost. We sell our compost for $75 a yard, not $25 like Woodchip, you know, carbon-based compost, but $75 a yard.
Where'd all this food go?
This food, the first year, the city wanted it donated, so we donated it to meal programs and pantries, but we've been here the second year. They told us, sell it, do whatever you want with it. So we market this product. We also donate a lot of it, and the kids there in the program take food home. Highly productive. We're growing it. So these are the beds. Same thing. We build the beds, wood chip pathways, 18 inches wide. So we go down the street to Cabrini Green, which is probably the most famous housing project in America, or infamous. And there's being gentrification happening. So organization, Fourth Presbyterian Church, downtown church with 4,000 members, very upscale, rich church, bought this property, and they want to use it as a bridge between the new folks that are moving in and the existing folks that have been living in there for generations, to build the bridges between the two communities. And they wanted to do that, and they hired us to grow on an old basketball court. So we brought in wood chip, brought another 100,000 pounds of compost, and we built beds on top of the asphalt. And this is the result. This has been going on for 5 years, one of the most positive projects. We wrap youth. You can see the housing projects right behind here. It's been a great project to bring the two groups. Church members have gardens there, as well as the community residents. So they have festivals, and we have a wraparound youth program that we manage for the Fourth Presbyterian Church.
Any vandalism problem?
No. Normally, I don't put fences around anything, because if you do your community engagement, you don't have to put fences. The kids are the ones that usually destroy things, but if you engage the kids, when I drive our trucks in and start a new project, 40 kids will come out. And that's the time that you get a chance to engage the kids. And if you don't do it at that point, then you lose that opportunity. I don't like fences. This particular playground, because it was a basketball court, had a high fence. But kids climb that fence all the time. I mean, they can scale that fence like nothing. Yes?
What's happening when you have a hard rain and you have all the
Great question. This isn't like topsoil. Remember those earlier pictures I showed you? This is compost. It doesn't run off like topsoil would. And plus you have wood chip underneath, so you don't get any runoff. No, it doesn't happen.
Are you mulching with wood chips?
Well, we lay wood chip down first, and then we put our compost on top, yeah, on asphalt. I do that sometimes. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. We're putting 2 feet of compost on top of the asphalt.
How much wood chip are you using?
We put about 8 inches of wood chip down.
No nitrogen robbing problem with that?
No, absolutely not, no. I don't know, I used to think that too. But wood chip is a beneficial thing because, like I said, fungi grows on the wood. If you don't have enough fungal soil, I know Elaine Ingham and folks like that will tell you that all day long. You got to have some fungi. And then the market basket. We have a 30,000 square foot warehouse where we put together the market basket. And of course our youth, that's really the foundation of a start of our organization. We involve them in every aspect of all the work that we do. The kids, a lot of the kids couldn't read or write. Unfortunately, our school passed these kids on, and one of the things I instituted a few years ago was an academic piece that the kids have to, I hired a MPS teacher in the summertime, and the kids have to do 2 hours of academic work, but it's around the stuff that they worked on on the facility. So that has helped raise their grades, and many of them, I've been in this a long time, many of our kids have gone through the program, gone on to college, and now work for us after college. So. These are some of the Chicago teens. The dropout rate, I don't even want to tell you, it's so bad. So it's important to engage these kids and keep them off the streets so they don't get involved in gangs and their lives get snuffed out at a very early age in Chicago. So these programs are very important. It's a program called After School Matters. For different types of programs, we introduced the agricultural piece to this, and we've got funded through this program to work with these 10 teens over the last 4 or 5 years. This project in Grant Park is called Art on the Farm. It's a French protege design. My daughter is an artist, and she designed the garden and the different color schemes and so forth. So the kids help maintain that during the summer. And then the outreach. We work with universities for regional training, work with the native reservations, as well as catfish farmers and then work in Kenya and Ukraine. I'll go through this pretty fast because the night's getting kind of long here. I also work with co-ops in the South to help them market their products. Up north, some of our farmers, this catfish farmer has no processing in the state of Georgia, so he's dependent on North Carolina and Mississippi processors, and he's losing a lot of money, so we're helping him market his product and also to develop an on-farm processing facility. And of course, the Blackfeet Nation in Browning, Montana, they're not natural farmers, but they need to change their lifestyle and eat more green stuff because they have diabetes over 50%, and they feel that they're going to be extinct in 20 years if they don't change their eating habits. And in Mississippi, MEGA, one of the groups, our regional outreach centers, we're bending pipe to put up hoop houses and building an aquaponics system so that they can grow fish and fowl in those hoop houses. And in Seven Harvest in Arkansas, same thing. Constructing hoop houses, we go down and help them and do trainings with them to do composting. And in New Orleans, we went down this past November and helped them construct a hoop house so that they can, And that's a place that has no soil. Absolutely everything is contaminated. And they have policies against doing composting in the city of New Orleans. So the New Orleans Food and Farm Network, they are working to change some of that stuff. And here in Kenya, you can see this is a landfill. Above ground, fertility in Africa is bad as well as it is everywhere else in the world. So they have to learn how to grow new soil to be able to grow food, because Africa is so large and so diverse in terms of its land. But the one thing I'll say about Africa is that they have more people growing food to sustain themselves than any place in the world. So they're actually way ahead of us, where a lot of folks in this country aren't eating very well. They were in middle class incomes, they lost their homes, they're living in apartments, they need to grow food. Africa, it's actually happening. There's gardens, you can look down hills and see 200 acres of little plots where people are growing bananas and corn and different things. And of course, the famous tea fields, I had to throw that in there. This is one of the best projects I saw, where a community, talk about local food systems, a community of a region in Africa where 7,000 farmers walk their milk or take them on goats or an old truck to a couple bulk tanks, and a check of $72,000 is realized every month into that region, and that money circulates through that community. That's real economic development. And of course, you got to go to Africa, you got to go to safari, so I threw that in there too. In Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe before the Russians decimated Ukraine, where there's huge opportunity for the Ukrainians to get back their land. They're going to have a land disbursement back to the people. The land was taken from farmers by the Russians back in the famine days of the 30s and so forth, and now those families will never get that land back, but at least the land can go back to the people once again. And inside central London, there's actually gardens. This particular farm I visited, they're doing pigs and sheep and everything right inside central London. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, another episode of Meet the Farmer TV. This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Nelly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.